I'm Brandi Kruse, and this is Politics Unpacked. Politics Unpacked is brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42, making Washington a place for all to prosper. Sign up for their newsletter at future42.org. Welcome to Politics Unpacked on this 10th week of the legislative session. If you thought we'd have a little bit of a lull this week while the Senate decides what House bills to hear and the House decides what Senate bills to hear, well, you'd be wrong, because it was actually a pretty action-packed week, and parental rights once again took center stage. The Senate Education Committee wasted no time in hearing House Bill 1296, which was sent to them by the House just a few days ago after passing along party lines with Democrats in favor and Republicans opposed. House Bill 1296 would upend certain aspects of the Parental Bill of Rights that was passed via initiative through the legislature last year.
My bill before you today is student-centered, starts with what students need in order to feel successful, to have the conditions in which they can feel as though they belong, they can see themselves in their school environment, they are welcomed, so that their basic needs are met, so that they can then learn. We have done this over the years for students who have no home, for students who are in our foster care system, for students with disabilities, for all of our students, for students who are undocumented and are fearful of what may be happening. We have talked for years about how important it is to make sure that every student feels that they're in a school setting where they belong so that they can learn.
Children need the security of a stable home, parental relationship, and oversight in order for them to develop healthy members of society. When that relationship is damaged or fractured by outside institutions, it creates confusion and instability in the child's development. In the end, the rearing and raising of children does not belong to the state. It is their God-given right and responsibility of every parent to do what is in the best interest of their child, regardless of how the superintendent, school district, or lawmakers feel.
Now, if the Senate decides to pass House Bill 1296 and it's sent to the governor's desk for his signature, then we already know that Let's Go Washington, which was behind the initial parental rights initiative, has already said that it will file another initiative to repeal whatever law is passed this session. Presumably, they would gather enough signatures as they did last time, and the issue would be sent to voters in November. Also this week, the fate of rent control might be coming into focus after the House passed a rent control bill. It's now in the hands of the Senate, where Senate Majority Leader Jamie Peterson, a Democrat, says he believes they have the votes to pass it if they make a few tweaks.
I think we will have the votes to pass rent stabilization this year, but there are a number of dials within that policy that I think we have members interested in adjusting.
It's still not clear whether Governor Bob Ferguson would sign a rent control bill. He has said one of his goals as governor is to build hundreds of thousands of additional housing units, something that would be made more difficult if rent control is in place. Let's talk about at least one bill we haven't discussed so far on Politics Unpacked this session. It is House Bill 1875, no doubt put forth in response to President Donald Trump's increased deportation efforts. House Bill 1875 would allow individuals to utilize paid sick leave if they have to attend immigration proceedings. That bill already passed in the House on a party line vote and was heard this week in the Senate Labor and Commerce Committee.
As an organizer, it is my job to understand and hear about what we're hearing from our communities. I often work with parents and community members who come from mixed status families, and right now, families are being terrorized by our federal administration.
Supporting immigrants is in the DNA of Washington retail and many retailers. We understand the intent of this bill and want to offer an amendment to get to the point of yes and potentially bipartisan support. The primary concern is using paid sick leave is not the suitable framework for the intent of this bill. Paid sick leave is intended for health-related matters.
Also this week, as we wait to figure out exactly how the state's going to fill its $14 billion budget deficit, it looks like Senate Democrats are going the way of new taxes. This week, they introduced a massive new tax package to try to dig the state out of its deficit, despite Governor Bob Ferguson saying they really should focus on spending cuts first. Included in this package are some things we've heard Democrats allude to in the past, and also a few tweaks here and there. Previously, we thought Democrats were considering lifting lifting the property tax levy lid from 1% to 3%. That means, for example, if you live in King County, the county could raise your property taxes up to 3% at a time without going to a vote of the people. Right now, they can only lift your property taxes by up to 1% at a time without asking you via a vote. Now, the change being proposed by Senate Democrats is different than that. Here's what they say they want to do. They say they want to increase annual property tax growth from the 1% cap where it's at right now to a combined rate of population growth plus inflation. So that means that your county could increase your property taxes by even more than 3% without going to a vote of the people. Also in the Democrats' plans for new taxes is expanding Seattle's Jumpstart tax to be statewide. That would mean large employers have to pay a 5% tax on payroll expenses that are above the Social Security threshold, which is about $176,000 a year. They're also introducing that wealth tax that we talked so much about during the beginning of the legislative session. So this would assess an extra tax on individuals who have wealth above $50 million. It would be $10 for every $1,000 of their assets. That includes financial assets such as stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Democrats claim it would apply to about 4,300 of the state's richest people. Now, here's something interesting, but how much it will actually help Washington families is in the finer details. As part of this tax package, Democrats in the Senate are introducing a proposed tax cut. That is a cut to the sales tax. Under their proposal, starting January 1st, 2027, the state sales tax would be reduced. But by how much? Just 0.5%. It would go from 6.5% to 6%. So they're proposing a small tax cut, but a whole lot of new taxes to try to deal with the state's budget deficit. We'll see which of those proposals stick and if Democrats in the legislature are going to bring any meaningful proposals forward to actually cut spending rather than simply raise revenue. That has been Politics Unpacked for this 10th week of the legislative session. I'm Brandi Kruse. Have a fantastic weekend. Politics Unpacked is brought to you by Future 42, making Washington a place for all to prosper. Sign up for their newsletter at future42.org. And in the meantime, join us 4 days a week for our live show, Undivided, where we give context and have important conversations about what's happening in Washington state and beyond. Undividedpod.com. That's undividedpod.com.